everywhere. GBS.
It's a beautiful, beautiful Friday to see all of you today. And today we are going to start with U.S. elections. Well, some countries do elections differently. In U.S., yes, papers counts. But I'm going to take you through about elections in U.S. Now, people say that every vote counts on paper, and yes, it does. But in the United States, some voters are more important than others. I'm talking about battleground states, also known as the swing states. Good afternoon. This is the ambassador. With me, your ambassador, Jennifer Macau. Now, as we continue with our story of today about United States, that is the polling stations, these are not Republican or Democrats. They swing from one election to the next. You win the states, you win without the White House. That is now how it works. And how many such states are there? 6 of them. Donald Trump is leading in 5. In Pennsylvania, he's leading by 3 points. And in Arizona, he's leading by 7 points. We are talking of Michigan, 7 points. Georgia, 7 points. And Nevada, 12 points. Now, Joe Biden leads only one swing state, and that is Wisconsin. He has a 2-point lead. Now, the president campaign has rejected these polls. They say they are inconsistent, and they are also point out on other polls showing Biden is on the lead. What a controversy. Well, I guess the politicians are same everywhere, but Biden cannot ignore the numbers. In 2020 elections, he won these 6 states. That's how he beat Donald Trump. But his winning margin was quite low, around 300,000 votes. That's it, 3 lakh votes, spread across 6 states. So Trump is quite confident. He thinks that he can overturn this deficit. And Trump has also things working for him. First, his trial not affecting his polls numbers. Trump is facing around 91 charges in court. His trial is getting a non-stop televised coverage. It seems to be helping him, and his voters don't even care about the cases. Well, in a similar survey that was conducted in November, that too showed the same numbers. So criminal case or not, the support base of Trump is solid. Now, in fact, Donald Trump has used this trial as a campaigning tool. He's attacking judges, lawyers, and Democrats in one go. Listen in.
The judge is highly conflicted, and he's keeping me from campaigning. He's an appointed New York judge. He's appointed. You know who appointed him? Democrat politicians. He's appointed. He's a corrupt judge, and he's a conflicted judge, and he ought to let us go out and campaign and get rid of this scam.
We represent how we are as a nation of immigrants, a nation of dreamers, a nation of freedom. When Trump was in office, he enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefiting the super wealthy and the very biggest.
Well, classic Trump, that is Trump for you. So that's one of the reasons why he seems to be leading in the court cases. Second, Biden coalition is eroding. In 2020, he had a major support groups. Joe Biden had 3 major support groups. That is the young voters, the black voters, and the Hispanics. All these are slowly ditching him. The young voters do not like his approach to Gaza. Black supporters worry about the rising cost of living, among others. And the Hispanics disapprove of his broader policy. Now these are voters propelled Biden into the White House. But for years, they are wary. And many of them do not turn up to the vote. Don't be surprised. A small number may even vote for Donald Trump. Now, the same poll shows 20% support for Trump among black voters, that is 20%. And if it holds, it could be a record. No Republican has scored the high as much as 1960s. And Joe Biden knows all of this. But he's focusing more on his traditional votes. Listen in.
We are as a nation of immigrants, a nation of dreamers, a nation of freedom. When Trump was in office, he enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefiting the super wealthy and the very biggest corporations. That exploded the federal debt. And he brags about cutting Roe v. Wade, making sure it's overturned.
Well, the talking points are quite clear. Immigration policy, tax on immigration policy, and tax on the super rich and abortion rights. These are the things that set him apart from Donald Trump and major policy differences. And yes, America do not feel deeply about all these issues, but elections often go beyond issues. And they also depend on excitement. And Joe Biden at 81 years of age is not able to generate that. Let's now go to the same poll. Let's talk about the polls. Now, around 70%, 70, that is 70% voters say the country system should be charged with political and financial, but many do not expect Biden to be able to do it at this point. Only 13% of his supporters, they think that Biden will enact major changes, and in his second term, they also admit that Trump would also shake things up. And that's a big selling point for Biden. It looks like America of the old, stuck in foreign wars, focused on heavily on Europe and grappling with high inflation. Hence, these polling numbers is actually a role reversal. Now, Joe Biden in 2020, because of anti-Trump wave, the voters said anyone of Trump, and it did not matter who, no matter the effect, is hurting Biden. Now, the question is, can he make a comeback? Can Joe Biden make a comeback? Well, Joe Biden campaigns has a large lead in finances. He's raised more money than any United States candidate, plus he's got a star campaigners. Hollywood actors are raising money for him. Former president are ganging up. So Biden does have a few aces up his sleeve. He's also going on big protecting American industry. Probably the only thing that Biden and Trump have in common. Now, the president has announced new tariffs on China. That is, Chinese electric vehicles will be taxed 100%. How will they be taxed? Lithium batteries 25%, critical minerals 25%, and solar cells 50%, and the semiconductors also 50%. And all these are major tariffs, almost Trump-like. They will increase the burden on the American customers, but in the long run, they could help up on the industries. Even Trump likes this issue.
He listens to me. You know, he does a lot of things. He listens about, he's about 4 years late. But he says he's going to put a 100% tariff on all Chinese electric vehicles. Isn't that nice? Should have done this 4 years ago.
Well, Trump has got a point there. Trump prefers an all-out trade war with China. Biden has promised careful competition, but this more will trigger retaliation, more from Beijing, may even also lead to a trade war. So is the president taking a page out of Trump's book? And if so, will it work? Well, that's a long wait until November for us to be able to find out. I'll keep you updated on the U.S. elections. Now, the government of Kenya and Uganda signed an agreement for transportation for petroleum to Uganda via Kenya as a state house in Nairobi. That was on Thursday, through Kenya's President William Ruto, who hosted the counterpart from Uganda President, that is Yoweri Museveni, assuring Uganda of a safer transportation of goods to Uganda. Now, the 3-day visit from Ugandan President to Kenya is expected to be economic value to both countries, further springing up economic growth between the two nations.
Uganda's president's 3-day state visit to Kenya is expected to breathe and spur economic growth between two nations after President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda and President William Ruto of Kenya signed an agreement for the transportation of petroleum to Uganda through Kenyan nation. The signing of the agreement happens 1 month after Kenya barred Uganda National Oil Company, also abbreviated as UNOC, from selling oil to neighboring countries in a move to protect transit market for Kenya Pipeline Company and local oil farms in the country, and instead, for the benefit of both nations, Ruto promised an open market for the petroleum companies between the two countries, and as a result of the agreement, Kenya Pipeline will now be extended from Eldoret to Kampala, Uganda.
We have also agreed that we will now explore jointly the extension of the pipeline from Eldoret to Kampala that will form the conversation in the next Joint Ministerial Committee.
The state visit of Uganda's president to Kenya is believed to have been as a result of a joint ministerial commission between Kenya and Uganda, during which several memoranda of understanding were signed in the area of public service management, SMEs, trade and investment, among other major issues, as President Museveni confirms.
This integration is to fight the battle of prosperity. You should understand this. Because if somebody is efficiently producing something, and we support him, he will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And another one from Uganda will also grow in something else. Another one from Tanzania.
President Museveni will be in the country for 3 days, in which his visit is expected to end social, political and economic differences faced between the two nations. Davis Karani, GBS News, State House, Nairobi.
Now, viewers, have you ever heard of Katogota, that is in DRC? They have been asking for justice. Now, on May 14th, 2000, the Ruzizi River, which separated the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, from Burundi and Rwanda, bore the bodies of hundreds of civilians massacred in Katogota by rebels from the Congolese rally from the Democratic Party, that the RCD. Now, the 24-hour later, residents in Katogota, a village in the Ruzizi Plain in eastern DRC, now continues to mourn and demand justice. And in a recent memorial procession, villagers walked to the Ruzizi River in honor of the victims through the massacre carried out by the RCD group, once allied with Rwanda, a presently registered political party that is in the DRC, which left deep scars in the community. And despite the ongoing efforts of the implementation of transitional justice, mechanisms remain low, leaving the victims' families in a prolonged state of uncertainty and pain. Now the community continues to press for justice, hoping that one day the echoes of their cries will be met with action. Listen in.
We hope that the hearts of our deceased loved ones will be resurrected on the last day by Christ, who is alive with others who have died in faith. We thank you for every grace you have granted to your faithful here on earth. The victims continues to cry and plead every day for justice, because we have truly noticed deadly silence from the Congolese government and its partners. This is the meaning and importance of the monument erected by the people. It's always in memory of the victims and to remind the government that the silence is deafening. It's indeed a...
Now, Mauritania President, the ex-President Mohamed Ould Abdel, seems to be in trouble, as the former Mauritanian President Mohamed Abdel Aziz has been excluded from the upcoming presidential elections scheduled for June 29 due to the insufficient sponsorship. According to his spokesperson, Mohamed Jabil, criticizing the sponsorship system as undemocratic, claiming the blocking by the authorities was undemocratic, as Aziz, who governed Mauritania until 2019, had intended to run against the incumbent president, Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, a former allied town adversary, as Aziz was sentenced in a 5-year prison in 2023 for illicit enrichment. Now, the government sponsorship requirement mandated president candidates to secure endorsement from municipal councillors and mayors, and currently, only the opposition Islamist party Tawassul possesses the necessary number of municipal councillors to meet these criteria. Well, I have a story for you pertaining the cattle herds. As a long-standing practice of seasonal cattle migration in the Central African Republic, the CAR is facing growing tensions as herders search for waters and pasture along traditional transhumance corridors, increasing pressure such as climate change, thus heightening conflicts between herders and farmers. Now, checking back historically, these migrations had been peaceful, but the competition for resources like water and farmland led to the clashes through the incidents occurring where herds crossed the damaged and harvested fields of farmers planting crops on designated transhumance routes. Now, in response to these tensions, the UN mission in the car, we are talking of MINUSCA, alongside with various partners, convened in a conference in the capital of Bangui earlier this week, aiming to find solutions to the insecurity and the violence linked to the seasonal cattle migration. Now, the conference gathered representatives from all national and regional actors involved in the transhumance activities, non-governmental organizations, and technical plus financial partners. And together, the delegates developed a series of recommendations which are intended to form a basis of roadmap for a sustainable resolutions to these conflicts. Listen in.
We advised people to avoid farming in transhumance corridors. My herd devastated a plantation. The owner came to ask me for damages, and we were able to resolve the issue amicably. I paid the amount he asked me. If a herd ravages a plantation and the breeder flees, this is not acceptable. If the animals damage a farmer's field, there's an amicable exchange between them, or even better as the leader. Between the two of them, they can get along.
Now let's move on to South Africa, where South Africa alerted the International Court of Justice, or the ICJ, on Thursday. Now the conflict in Gaza has entered a new horrific stage, at this development coming as South Africa now seeks emergency measures to halt Israel's military operation that is in Rafah, a southern city of the Gaza Strip. Now, this marks the third time the ICJ has held hearings on the Gaza conflict since the South Africa initiated legal proceedings last December, accusing Israel of committing genocide. Israel, meanwhile, denied all these allegations, asserting that its military actions targeted Hamas militants and strived to minimize civilian casualties. And the city of Rafah, according to Israel, is a major Hamas stronghold. Listen to this.
I had hoped, when we last appeared before this court, to halt this genocidal process, to preserve Palestine and its people. Instead, Israel's genocide has continued apace and has just reached a new and horrific stage. Israel has sought to hide its crimes through the weaponization of international humanitarian law. It pretends that the civilians it ruthlessly kills through its 2,000-pound bombs, through its targeted airstrikes, through its artificial intelligence systems, through its executions, are human shields. This whitewashing of Israel's genocide misses the key and fundamental element, that of the massive and still mounting evidence of Israel's genocidal intent.
Well, this quagmire seems not to take even a respite, and that international news brings us to our first break. There's more coming up for you. Next, we'll talk about the Slovakian minister assassination attempt, that is Fischl attack. We want to see how the government of Sri Lanka new slogan, the White House spokesperson expressed concerns over the Georgia's Kremlin style. We'll get to see why, and also Guterres Arab League summit in Bazebebin, the team's technique on climate change and Nairobi overcoming deaf challenges. You can't afford to miss this. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
So through the four gospel books, Matthew, Mark, about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins. He carried our sins. And he was crucified and he received the punishment for sins. And he was put into the tomb and resurrected in 3 days. This is the gospel that we speak. About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being crucified. He was crucified to pay for our sins. And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean. However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching the Ambassador GBS Global, and we are glad to have joined us today. Now, in a shocking turn of events, the Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico narrowly escaped an assassination attempt earlier on Wednesday, harrowing incident unfolding outside the Handlover House of Culture, where Fico was attending a meeting with the locals. Through footages capturing a moment of a 71-year-old assailant identified as Slovakian Juja Cintula opened fire on Fico, prompting a swift action from his bodyguards, who intervened to protect him emergently, services rushing him to the scene, with the helicopter airlifting Fico to a safety place amidst the chaos. Now, reports from the Prime Minister's office confirmed the severity of his injuries, describing his condition as critical after sustaining multiple gunshot wounds. Fico underwent an extensive 3.5 hours of surgery, with Defense Minister Robert Klinak stating that the condition remained very complex. Now, authorities have detained the suspect, but investigations unfold while the motive behind the attack remains undisclosed. NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg condemned the assassination attempt, describing it as a violation of democracy and expressing shock and appall during a meeting in Brussels. Slovakia has been placed on the highest alert, with heightened security measures expected around government officials. Here is more.
Admiral Bauer, there we are shocked and appalled by the shooting. It violates every idea of a democracy. In democracies we can disagree, we can have different opinions, but violence is absolutely unacceptable. So our thoughts are with the Prime Minister, Robert Fico, his family and the people of Slovakia.
Igor Matovic, who was the former Prime Minister, he was also, those people would use words which you would never hear in Parliament, ever. But suddenly...
Well, our heart goes to Slovakia and Fico, even the Republic. We hope that it gets a quick recovery from this assassination attempt. Now, moving on, Secretary Antonio Guterres took the stage on Thursday at the Arab League Summit in Manama, that is Bahrain, emphasizing on the importance of unity and solidarity within the Arab world. Addressing the escalation crisis in Gaza, General Guterres condemned the 7th October terror attacks by the Hamas and called for immediate release of the hostages. He emphasized on the need for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Rafah and an impended access for aid throughout Gaza. Before the summit, Guterres met with the Arab League Secretary General Abul Gate to discuss cooperations and the regional issues. Likewise, meeting with the Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati, expressing support for Lebanon, same time discussing tensions along the Blue Line and refugee issues, with calls for peace, humanitarian aid, and regional cooperation. Secretary General address underscores the urgent need for collective action in the Middle East. Here is more.
Unity and solidarity throughout the Arab world would amplify the vital voice of the region and further boost your influence on the global stage. It can help this region find peace, make the most of its enormous potential, and further contribute to the global good. In all this work, you can count on the United Nations and on me personally for our support and partnership. Of course, nothing can justify the abhorrent 7 October terror attacks by Hamas, and I reiterate my call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. And nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. Yet the toll on civilians continues to escalate. Entire families wiped out, children traumatized and injured for life, people denied access to the very basics for human survival, a looming famine. Any assault on Rafah is unacceptable.
Well, so much for conflicts. Now I have a story for you encouraging from Zambia. As an 18-year-old Zambian teen has been helping spread the word about climate change using sign language. We are talking of Bridget Chanda, a double amputee interpretee. Lessons at a school where special needs students attend the classes with other regular pupils, attesting to the learning of the sign language through a self-initiative. This climate change activist and agripreneur Elizabeth Motale has also been at the center of this initiative to save the planet, as the South African nation has suffered more of the frequent extreme weather, including its current severe drought, prompting to the Zambian government to include more climate change education in its school curricula. Here is more.
I came, it was challenging for me, yes, quite alright, because by then I never knew sign language, so like it was very difficult for me to communicate with them. But as time goes on, I discovered like I just have to use sign language so that I can be helping them in one or two things. I deliver this session to my community members about climate change. Whenever they face challenges in terms of rainfall, I taught them on how to reserve water, yes, so that they can use at that particular moment. I faced some challenges in terms of signing for them, but I have a girl called Bridget who usually help me when I'm delivering sessions. She usually signs for them. Alright, so this is how it looks like.
We still have some teething problems as we develop on how to improve on how to deliver and cater for the special needs, especially in the hearing, in terms of how do we correctly deliver this information without diluting the context. And also, we've got areas where you might...
Well, I have a story for you from China and Russia. I know it's not a surprise, as recently they had a high-profile meeting. Now, in a high-profile meeting in Beijing on Thursday, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin underscored the robust and the growing partnership between their countries through the talks taking place following a grand military welcome ceremony at the Great Hall of the People. They were celebrating the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and Russia, pardon the pun, and President Xi Jinping underlined the importance of the stable China-Russia relations, highlighting their significance not only for the fundamental interests of the both nations, but also for the regional and the global peace, stability, and prosperity. Putin also highlighted the portfolio of 80 large joint investment projects spanning from various sectors, showcasing the depth of economic cooperation between China and Russia. And despite external pressures from the third countries, the two leaders reaffirmed their commitment to a no-limit relationship, a pact initially signed in 2022, just before Russia's military operation in Ukraine. Listen in.
China-Russia relations is not only in line with the fundamental interests of both countries and their peoples, but also conducive to regional and even global peace, stability, and prosperity. We will constantly consolidate the friendship between the two peoples for generations, jointly achieve the development and revitalization of each country, and work together to maintain world fairness and justice. A significant portfolio of 80 large joint investment projects in a wide variety of areas has been formed. Our timely joint decision to ensure the transition of bilateral payments into national currencies gave a powerful impetus to the expansion of trade flows. Today, 90% of all payments are made in rubles and yuan.
And that international news brings us to the end of our bulletin today. We will keep you more updated here at the Ambassador, where we bring you the latest developments as you keep it locked at the Ambassador. It has been glad having you from Monday to Friday at 1 p.m., hoping and praying and wishing and knowing to see you on Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. I've been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Monday at 1 p.m. And may you all have a superb and the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. See you then.
everywhere. GBS.